Hi, I'm Buster Williams, and you're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.
Hi everyone, I'm John Liebman. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com, and I am here with none other than bass legend Buster Williams. How you doing, Buster?
Okay, John, how you doing?
Oh, great. It's such a pleasure and an honor to meet you. I've heard your music. I've known about you for so many years, and it's truly a pleasure to talk with you one-on-one like this. Well, thank you very much. I know your father was a huge influence on your musical upbringing. Tell me about that relationship and the mentoring and everything else.
My father played bass, piano, and drums. And his musician friends were at the house all the time, and he had a vast collection of records, Jimmy Lunceford, and Duke Ellington, and Baby Dobbs, and, lots of music. So I heard, the duos with Duke Ellington and Jimmy Blanton. And so I was introduced to music very early on. And I wanted to do what my father did. I admired my father. And so I asked him one day to teach me how to play the piano. So we had a roller, one of those roller pianos, you played the pedals. But of course you could also, play the piano as the regular piano. And he started teaching me piano. I'll never forget, the first song he taught me was Pennies from Heaven. And then he taught me a song called That Old Feeling. Yep. To this day, I can play those songs. But I got a little impatient, and I heard him play the drums also. So I wanted him to teach me the drums. So he said, okay. So he said, wait here. He went upstairs, and he came downstairs with a pair of sticks and a practice pad. And he put the sticks in my hand, told me how to hold the sticks. And I'm thinking, what's this got to do with the drums? I had heard Art Blakey and Max Roach, and I wanted to do what they were doing. And I had heard my father. I never heard him play this practice pad. He says, if you want to play the drums, this is the beginning. And he began to teach me Mama, Daddy, Mama, Daddy, Mama, Daddy. And I said, oh, this is going to be boring. But then he played for me a record of Oscar Pettiford playing Stardust. And Oscar Pettiford was playing the melody. It was a solo.
On the bass or on the cello?
On the bass. And it was amazing. But what really caught me was the intimacy of it all. I could hear the way they had him recorded. I could hear his thumb as it slid up and down the back of the neck. I could hear it would squeak. And I said, wow, and it would, as he's moving, and the squeak and the notes that were coming out I'd never heard anything like that before. So then I asked my father, Dad, you got to teach me the bass. And he looked me straight in the eye and he says, if I teach you this bass, you're going to do everything I tell you. You're going to do it the way I tell you, and you're going to be the best. He says, I won't accept anything less. Now, my father's eyes, his whole emotion was expressed in his eyes. And what I saw this time was a threat. You better be serious about this or I may have to kill you. So, but I with fear, I said, yes, Dad, I will. And so it began. And then my father, when I got good enough, he would take me on gigs with him. He would play drums and I would play bass.
And how did your career get started? Is that how it was when you'd go along with him? Or...
Very interesting. My father was in charge of a Monday night jam session at a club called Rips, which was right around the corner from where we lived. And this particular Monday night, my father let me take charge of the jam session. He told me a week ahead, and he told me, he says, okay, now you got to call and put together your core band. And so you call whoever you want. And it worked out just as I planned. Jimmy Heath heard me playing with Sam Reed. 3 days after that gig, Jimmy Heath called me and asked me to join his band. So my stepping stone approach was working. So I started working with Jimmy Heath and Sam Dockery and Specs Wright. And we worked all the time in Philadelphia. And then one Saturday evening, I wasn't working, and I was at my girlfriend's house getting ready to take her to the movie. And it was a Friday. And my father called to my girlfriend's house, and her mother said, Buster, your father's on the phone. I pick up the phone. And my father said, come home, put your suit on. You got a gig. I said, Dad, I'm getting ready to go to the movie. I'm taking Brenda to the movie. He says, I said, come home, put your suit on. You got a gig with Gene Ammons and Sonny Stitt at the Showboat in Philadelphia. And hung up the phone. So I knew what that meant. First of all, my father said, I got a gig. I got to go, and the gig comes first. He told me that early on. Nothing was more important than the gig.
Did Brenda understand that?
Well, Brenda was upstairs getting dressed. I put the phone down and went to the front door. And as I went to the front door, I hollered up the stairs and said, Brenda, I got to go. I got a gig. And the last thing I ever heard Brenda say was, you got a what? And I shut the door. And I was gone. And I never saw Brenda again. I never saw her again. Well, you know, actually, I failed to mention that before Gene Ammons and Sonny Stitt, I was with Dakota Staton.
Oh, right.
And Dakota Staton was riding the crest of this big hit she had called The Late Late Show. So anyway, I went from Dakota Staton to Gene Ammons and Sonny Stitt, and
then you went on to play with so many jazz and music luminaries.
Yeah, and
you were with Nancy Wilson, right, for quite a while.
And between all of that was Lee Morgan and Benny Golson and then, you know, Betty Carter. I left Betty Carter and joined Sarah Vaughan. I left Sarah Vaughan and joined Nancy Wilson.
And then on, so many more. Everybody from Miles Davis to Count Basie to Herbie Hancock, Larry Coryell, even guys like Mike Stern that I wouldn't normally associate a name like that with.
Yeah, we have a working band now with Mike Stern and Sonny Fortune and Jimmy Cobb called The Four Generations of Miles.
Right. And all the commercials. And you mentioned Benny Golson. You were in that Tom Hanks film, Terminal.
Yeah, Terminal. Yeah.
Well, I bet that was fun.
It was fun. Man, we all had, they all gave us, we all had our own trailer. The trailer was about the size of half the size of a football field.
Well, with Spielberg and Hanks, and at that stature, you know,
and I
why
had
not?
this big white trailer with my name on it, Buster Williams. And I had everything in there, man. I could live in that trailer. Benny Golson said he wanted to take his trailer home and park it in front of his house, in front of his apartment in New York, and live in it. You know.
That's funny.
Yeah, it was a great experience.
Tell me about your equipment. I saw you one time in New York with Harold Land and Jimmy Cobb, and I don't remember who all else was in the band, but you were playing just about the biggest bass I've ever seen.
My bass is a Hawks. It's English bass, a Hawks Panormo. It's an English bass, which is a copy of a Panormo bass. Panormo was an Italian. My pickup is a Fishman. My strings are Labella.
Tell me about that. Why do you use Labella strings?
I was playing with Ron Carter. We had a quartet back in the 70s. I think this was around 74, 75. And a friend of ours named Attila Zola, who was a great guitarist, he came in with 2 sets of strings. We were playing at Sweet Basil in New York.
Oh, yeah.
And he gave us both a set of these Labella strings and asked us to try them out. And I was surprised because I always associated Labella with electric strings, for the electric bass.
You ever play electric?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we tried them out, and they were black nylon wound strings, and I loved them. The sustain on these strings was amazing.
The last question, Buster. What would you be if you were not a bass player? Something outside of music, perhaps.
I'd be sad. Playing this music really, you can't play this music and it not have a profound effect on your life and your perspective of being a human being. And what I've learned through this music led me to Buddhism, to chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and that totally revitalized and reformed my whole perspective, my whole paradigm that I base myself on. If I were not a musician, and I know what I know now, I'd still be a humanitarian in some kind of way. I would have to be.
A very inspirational note to end on. Buster Williams, such an honor and a pleasure. Mm-hmm. Much luck, continued success to you. Keep doing what you're doing. We'll keep enjoying it, and thanks for so much great music over the years.
Thank you.
I'm John Liebman. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.